What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do an overview on the truck, like a cost analysis, what it took to do it, etc., etc. I've been getting a lot of questions lately, so I figured I'd kind of go over it. Also, start off, we got some new wheels for the rear. They're SVE wheels off of a New Edge Mustang, which is like a 90, I think it's a 98 or 99 to like 2005 or 2004. I'm not exact on the years, but found them on Marketplace for a good deal, $400. Tires are like new. It's got Mickey Thompson ET Street R's. They're 15-inch, 275 50 R15, and they are 10 inches wide with 6.25 backspacing, if I remember correctly, and they fit well. All right, they fit well. They look nice and meaty under there. But we'll go over the truck now. I started off by buying the truck during the COVID market when everything was really high. Paid $2,500 for it. It was a running, driving truck. I drove it for, I think, a little over a year before I decided to take it apart. Didn't really buy it with intention on this. I mean, I always kind of had the thought in the back of my head it'd be cool to do, but kind of more or less bought it to run scrap metal to the scrapyard and just kind of have a truck laying around. But I got bored, as I always do, so I picked up the LQ9 out of a 2005 Cadillac Escalade from a junkyard about half an hour away. Came with the harness and the computer. It was $1,250. I sold the harness and the computer for $250, so I paid $1,000 for the engine is the way I'm looking at it. It has like 160,000 miles on it. Put the BTR cam, springs in, retainers, etc. That was about $600. Had to get the coil brackets. Those were like $200. And then the intake I bought off a buddy. That was $200. So right there at $2,000. Then I bought the fuel rails, which I think those were close to $200. I bought the throttle body. That was another $200. This intake is something I just kind of made. Ordered the pipe, the elbow, and the filter off of Amazon. I think everything together was like $60. So we're a little over $2,500 just for the engine. The ICT brackets are specific for an S10. These were like, I think, a little over $300. They might have been close to $400. But they're truck spacing, and it uses the factory S10 power steering pump, factory S10 AC compressor, factory S10 alternator, which is also the same as a regular GM truck, so you can kind of use whatever one you want. I opted for the Escalade alternator because it was a little bit more amperage. I think it's 140 or 160 amp. I can't remember. Had to recess the radiator. I got a new radiator because my old one was nasty. Intrepid fans, I got them off Rock Auto. I think they were $160 if I remember right. I had the truck water pump on it for a while, as you guys saw in the last video. That's an LS3 water pump. Yes, it is the same as truck spacing. That's something I kind of researched. ICT actually has a really good pictorial and write-up on the spacing and what ones are what. And in my opinion, this one just looks better. It has a shorter hose. Yes, this is super close. I'm going to build some sort of bracket to kind of hold it back and have it in here. But I also have to build a bracket here. We just have zip tie. So we're not 100% done yet, but we're getting there. 4L80E transmission. I paid $1,000 for that. You should be able to get one that's good for $1,000. I unfortunately got beat. That's the chances you take buying used auto parts. So I did have to rebuild the transmission. Someone to rebuild it would want about $1,000 to $2,000. I spent about $500 rebuilding it, doing it myself. Circle D converter. That was $1,500 or $1,600. Something you don't need, but I wanted. The headers, they're Amazon specials, LS swap, you know, just cheap. They were like 200 bucks. Drive shaft, 4-inch aluminum drive shaft. That was, I think, about $800, but it's got a billet yoke and a billet flange, so it's strong. I should never have any issues with it. Current performance wiring harness, which this is the, trying to think of the name of it. Integration harness is what it's called. So it keeps your factory computer and it runs into the truck, plugs into the Holley. Well, it doesn't exactly plug in. You gotta wire it. And then I also had to add this box, the Dakota Digital box, for my speedometer, or my RPM to work correctly. So I mounted the Holley ECU in here, which that was $1,600. The integration harness was $400. So we're at $2,000 for the ECU and wiring. So already somewhere around, let's see, 2, 4, well, it's more like 5, and then 25 for the truck. So yeah, we're already around $11,000 just with all that and the ICT brackets and everything. Somewhere around 11, between 11 and 12. And then I did the Ford 88 rear, paid $300 for that. And then the cover was rotted, so I bought a nice cover. That was $200. Bought the cow tracks, because if you're putting a rear in it, why not go ahead and do that? Those were, I think, $500. They were like 4 something. So around $1,000 in the rear altogether. And then I did new brakes and everything. Didn't want to reuse the old crusty stuff on there, so new pads and rotors and whatnot. And then building the exhaust too. The exhaust was the cheapest part. That was the Amazon DNA 2.5-inch stainless pipe that I put together, and I bought 2.5-inch mufflers for it. And I ran true duals all the way back, made an X pipe. Or no, I actually purchased the X pipe. I purchased an X pipe, put that in there. So I got about $500 in the exhaust. And then some things that I had to do, which I think I already mentioned, the radiator. That was new. Oh, I also got the Holley Hooker steering shaft and AC box cover, so it would fit better. I got a new coolant reservoir just because the old one was crusty looking. Kind of looked like, well, it looked way worse than that. And also Dirty Dingo mounts and the Holley Hooker trans cross member. All that together, I think, was like $1,500 for everything. The Dirty Dingo mounts were $150. Cross member was like $300. Steering shaft was, I think, a little over $200. That was like $150. That was like $30 on Amazon. So it added up quick. I also got a PQY fuel regulator. These are cheaper. I think it was like $80. But I've seen a lot of people use them online, never have any issues. And what I did there, this is where the original cruise control mounted, which still would have worked because of the harness I bought. But I kind of just, I mean, you don't need cruise control on something like this, so that was a good spot for that. Keeps it away from vibrations. It's way far away from the heat in case it starts leaking, anything like that. And then you got little miscellaneous stuff like the fuel pressure sensor, IAC, throttle position sensor, map sensor, new oil pressure sensor, new crank sensor. I wanted to replace all the sensors on the engine because they all had 160,000 miles on them, to my knowledge. So there was no point in keeping them and possibly running into issues. Trans cooler mounted in here. That was like $150. Fuel line, I went with PTFE. It's -8 feed to the rail. So I have it feeding into the rail. It comes around. Actually, no, I'm sorry. It feeds over there, comes around, and then goes over to the regulator, and then the return, which is a -6 PTFE, is what runs back to the tank. I think I got about $300 in all that. I used Evil Energy stuff. I actually used Evil Energy on everything, including the exhaust for the V-band clamps. They work phenomenal. Haven't had any issues with the fuel line. It's a little bit of a pain. You can tell it's a little bit of a cheaper line. It's a little hard to make the lines, but everything came out great and there's no leaks. So that worked out good. Haven't changed any of the front suspension yet. That's kind of my next goal, is to get tubular control arms, etc., etc. But overall, my point is I'm roughly $15,000 to $16,000 into this. I do have a lot of stuff you don't have to get, like the Camaro seats. You don't have to get a new rear. You don't have to get Caltrax. You don't have to get a big fancy aluminum drive shaft. You don't need a converter. You know, if I wanted to do this as cheap as possible, I'd buy a 4.8 or a 5.3 with a computer and harness for $500-600. I'd drop it in, modify the harness so it could work. Also, Current Performance Wiring sells a harness so you can use a factory truck computer and get your gauges and everything working. That's like $800, I think it is. That was the route I was originally going to go. Then I decided to go with the Holley, mainly because I wanted to do a cam, and I know I'm going to want to do more down the road. I think I could have done this for around, probably, say on the safe side, $7,000 with purchasing the truck for $2,500. But I decided to get a little crazy, as most of us do when we get into projects like this. So it is what it is, but I have a lot nicer of a vehicle. You know, if I would have done a complete sloppy build, I probably would have had issues and probably would have had things that I would have wanted to do, and would have been a constant project. It still is going to be a constant project, but I have literally been daily driving this thing. I have, I think, almost 1,000 miles on it now, and I don't drive far. I live 5 minutes from work, and, you know, everything I have is local. So anyways, I think I showed you guys in one of the last videos, but what's in the box? A VS Racing 78, 76? Could be wrong. I forget what size it is now. But it's the billet. I also powder coated it already to match my valve covers, timing cover, etc., etc. So this is going to be the next thing going on the truck. I think I'm going to Cerakote the exhaust housing too. This isn't going to be something that goes on right away, but it is going to go on soon, and I'm debating on whether it's going to go here, here, which it's going to stick up out of the hood a little bit, and I would probably have to delete the air and move the alternator over there, which they sell brackets for. Or I've also considered putting it in the bed, you know, somewhere in this area in the bed, and then just running a pipe back up. Haven't quite made my decision on that yet. It's something I'll get into once I'm ready to put it on, but that's going to be probably a couple months before I even think about that. I still need fuel injectors. I still need a bigger fuel pump. In the higher RPMs, I'm dropping fuel pressure, and my injector duty cycle is about 120 to 140%, which is not good. It's way out of fuel. But I just wanted to do a quick overview because a lot of people are asking. We have BTR Truck Norris cam, TBSS intake, Holley Sniper 92mm throttle body, Holley Terminator X-Max ECU, Current Performance Wiring harness so my factory gauges work, and stock fuel pump and injectors right now, which, like I said, it's out. Intrepid fans, you know, and so on. So anybody's building one or thinking about building one, this gives you a good idea of what it costs, and kind of routes you can take. I've watched a lot of videos myself. A lot of people have done things a little bit differently. A lot of people have done things the same. You know, with the TBSS intake, you do have the problem with the heater core lines are super tight back there. And my trans dipstick tube is also back here. So that thing's kind of a pain to get to. I'm probably gonna change that out to the Lokar one so I can mount it a little bit differently, so it's easily accessible. But just wanted to get you guys a quick overview video, cost breakdown. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, anything of that sort, feel free to let me know. See you guys.